Hey everybody, welcome. I'm going to open the May VIP craft box with you guys, and I'm going to take you through the first tutorial. So let's get started. Let's not waste any time. The first thing obviously is your cup, and you should have received a 10-ounce lowball. The reason that I chose this particular cup for this design is, to me, this cute, short, fat little cup looks great for fruit. So I'm just going to put my lid back in the box, and we're going to get started on this cup. I tape the tops and the bottoms of my cup, and so if you don't do this, obviously you can skip this part. I just take my Sharpie, lay it on the table, and run the cup around, and that'll give me, I don't know how well you can see, but that gives me a straight line to follow throughout the taping process. Now please keep in mind, this particular program is designed for everyone. So it's not just for beginners, it's not just for seasoned cup makers. It is designed for everyone. And so the reason that I say that is because sometimes you'll see something, especially if you're a seasoned cup maker, that you don't necessarily need to see. Just remember that there's somebody out there that needed to see it. And so I'm going to try to cater this program to everyone. We won't just be doing beginner designs, we will be doing all kinds of designs, but I just want you guys to know why, you know, like for instance right now, why am I showing myself taping the cup? Because I want everyone to see the process. So I followed my guideline, my Sharpie, and I've now taped the top. The bottom, I just used the line that's already there, this one. I'm actually going to move you guys just a little closer to me so you can see just a little better my workspace. And then the same thing for the bottom. Now if you don't tape your cups, then obviously you skip this step. I don't tape the bottom, this part, unless I'm actually airbrushing or spray painting, because obviously you don't want that on there. But if I'm just doing the epoxy method, which is what I'm doing today, I don't tape that. So there we go, we're good to go. Now let me show you the rest of the box. So you all received a silicone, it's actually a silicone makeup brush. This is what I use when I do the epoxy method. And so I included it in the boxes just for those of you that don't already have one, or if you do already use them, then that's great, because you can always use another one. As soon as you're done using it, just wipe it with a baby wipe, and it's ready to go for the next time. So you received that. You also received 5 pineapple keychains. I will do another tutorial for you guys on the keychains, but this was just a bonus in the box this month. I just threw it in there because I figured you guys could be exposed to something else if you don't already do keychains. So I'll do a separate tutorial for that. You also received 3 glitters. The pineapple shards, which are not available on Etsy as of right now. They may be. But this one will be for our pineapple cup. Then you received the candy apple red. And this will be for our strawberry cup that we're going to do together now. And then Maleficent is a very beautiful green. That one we'll be using right now on the strawberry cup as well, and this one is also for the pineapple. That's why you got double the size than you did these, because you're going to use this on both designs. These you'll only use on your single designs. You also received some yellow acrylic paint. I sent you guys all my little thingies full of paint, so I had to pull out my but this is the type that you got. It's the apple barrel yellow acrylic paint. You also got these makeup sponges. This is how I apply my acrylic paint. This is for the pineapple cup as well, so you won't be needing this right this second, but you will need it for this month's box. And then here are your decals for the strawberry cup that we'll be doing. So now I'm going to move on. And what we're going to do is we're going to use our triangles, and you're going to place these on your cup as far down as you want your leaves to go. Right now we're just stenciling our leaves, and you'll overlap them. I made sure to give you guys enough to go around the entire cup. And if you want to draw a, one of those silver lines with your Sharpie to guide you on where you're putting your stencils, you absolutely can. I'm actually going to turn this around so you guys can see a little better. But this is how I do my pencils as well. Actually, I can't turn it around. I'll turn it sideways. So I need to be able to see and make sure I'm spacing them correctly. But I feel like when you do these with individual shapes, like the triangles, rather than one big piece, you tend to be able to get it on there better versus trying to fight with that little bit of a curve on most cups. These particular cups don't have that curve, but I'm all about teaching you guys techniques, and so for me, this is a technique I wanted to show you guys. So much easier when you're using individual pieces rather than one big long line. Remember, this is a natural fruit. It doesn't have to be perfect. Obviously, we want it as close to perfect as we can get it. But it really does not need to be perfect. You also can go into your design center, design space, or this one's crooked, let me fix that. You can go into your cutting program and you can cut them bigger if you would like to. Actually, I'm just gonna leave it because I don't feel like tearing it up. Alright, so now you've got it stenciled that quickly, that easily. Now I'm going to stick these to the side because we're going to use these after we color in epoxy. Now I'm going to mix a little bit of epoxy. I'm not going to do much. We're doing the epoxy method to apply our glitter, therefore we need very little epoxy. Very little. If you can get 5 mLs total, that's great. Sometimes I can, sometimes I can't. I have better luck getting the 5 mLs total now that I'm using the art resin epoxy. When I used Pro Marine, it's so thick that by the time I squeezed the bottle, I had 5 mLs of one part in my cup. But I've gotten a lot better now that I'm using the Pro Marine. Also, you can base coat this if you would like to. I know some people do sand their cups before they start, and they prefer to spray paint or to airbrush. So you're welcome to do that if that's how you normally do it. Just adapt your way of doing it with the technique that I'm showing you. That's the cool thing about art, is there's really no right or wrong. I'm going to pour a little bit of epoxy on there. That's going to be way more than we need for this whole thing. But I'm going to just go ahead and spread it around. And then that's what I sent the silicone makeup brush for, is that's how I scrape off any excess epoxy that I have on here before I glitter. If you notice, I'm coming up all the way to my tape, or my stencils I should say, and just make sure you're getting all of that with some epoxy on it. Go around a few times, hit your seams, make sure you're getting those, and that's it. Now, now I'll take the brush that I sent you guys, and I'm literally just gonna wipe off any excess epoxy. Because you're not epoxying your cup right now. You're literally just using your epoxy as your adhesive. So you're going to want to wipe off any excess. If you see any lines where your epoxy kind of pools, wipe it off. Because if you don't wipe it off, then you will actually see that line under your glitter. And you definitely don't want that. So just make sure you've got a nice smooth surface of adhesive. And I'm good. Alright, now we're ready to glitter. Again, like I said, just wipe this with a baby wipe and it's ready to go for the next go round. Next time you need it. They come in super handy, just so you know. So now we're going to do our red for our strawberry. So you're going to pull out your candy apple. And you're going to glitter. I'm going to have to pour this back in a few times, I have a feeling, into the container, but that's okay. Not a big deal. Now, if we had base coated, you would get a little better coverage. And you're welcome to base coat. I personally just don't. I'm trying to show you guys easy ways to do this. So this particular one I don't base coat. these are opaque glitters, and so it's not as important, but base coating is always going to give you better coverage. The only time that not base coating gives you better coverage is when you're using a silver, because it's already base coated in silver. So you will get a little better coverage if you base coat with the red. But I just don't. I did not realize that was out of screen the whole time I was glittering. I'm so sorry, you guys. Okay, so now I have glittered. I scooped a little. I have glittered my tumbler red. That quick. And let's see if I can get it all back in there. The only way I can ever fit this all back in is if I tap it down. And even then, sometimes it doesn't like to all fit. Now, for those of you that asked, will you only have the supplies to do 1 cup? This should answer your question. We've already used all the red that we're going to use for our strawberry, and you have an entire container still left. Oops, to use for whatever you want. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to seal this with my Rust-Oleum 2X. Let me show you. I'm going to seal it with this. It's the Rust-Oleum 2X Ultra Clear Matte. I'm going to seal it, and then I'm going to pull my stencils and let you see that. I will be back in 2 seconds. And the reason that I seal is because I don't want my red to go into my green. So that is why I seal. Now I'm going to take this off just because I want you guys to see. So I'll pull my tape, and you see a little bit, I don't know if you can see, but a little bit seeped under my tape right there. While it's still wet, before it cures, I'm going to wipe that with a baby wipe. And I'm going to come up here, and I'm going to carefully pull these stencils. And basically all I'm doing is I'm pulling my original tape. You know how I tape the top? I'm pulling that, and it's pulling my stencils with. Just want to be really careful and go away from your design. So that it doesn't rub on it. That's the last one. And there you go. Now, I'm going to let this dry for at least 5 to 6 hours. I want to make sure this epoxy is nice and solid. And then we'll go back and we'll fill these in with green. And I will resume recording at that time. So I'll see you guys in a bit. Welcome back, everyone. So here we are where we left off. Basically what I'm going to do now is I've let it sit for probably about 6 hours. And so it's nice and set, and I'm going to retape and continue where we left off. For taping the second time, you can totally skip this step if you don't tape off your rims. I always tape the tops and the bottoms of my cups, and therefore I have to retape after every step. But obviously if you don't tape your cups, then you don't need to do this. For this particular one, I'm going to go just a little below my current glitter line. And the reason for that is my next step after I get my green on is going to be to epoxy, to flood coat this. And when I'm flood coating, I want my epoxy to adhere to the actual cup. So that is why I go just a little beyond, and I actually do that on every single step. Just go a little further than your last line, and that allows your epoxy every time to actually seal to your tumbler. So I definitely recommend that every time you tape your cup. Now you could go back in here and draw a line, but I just follow my old previous line as a guide. But if you're just starting out and you don't think you can eyeball it, by all means take your silver Sharpie and draw yourself a line. I'll tape my top as well. Again, this is a personal preference. If you don't tape your tumblers, then you don't need to do that. I got a little epoxy on the bottom. I'll clean that up in a bit. And I'm going to do the same thing with the top, and I still have my silver line there from the beginning. I'm going to tape just above that, and the reason for that is so that my next layer, which is going to be my Maleficent, I never say it right, that'll cover that silver line. So tape right above it and you won't be able to see it. If you tape right below it and use your tape to cover it, then when you go to epoxy, you're going to see that line. So yeah, again, if you don't tape off, then that won't even be an issue for you. I should have went the other way so that I could do it in my hands. Again, just above that silver line so that my Sharpie line will be covered by my next layer of glitter. Also a tip, just since I'm here talking to you, with your electrical tape, your electrical tape has a little bit of give. That's why I use this rather than painter's tape. But you'll notice, like, I'll hold my tape and pull it to get more and then start laying it down. And the reason I do that is when you pull it, you're actually stretching it. And so by letting go of it and letting it loosen itself back up, it takes its normal shape back rather than the tighter pulled. And that's important when you're trying to get an even line. Just a little trick I learned doing this so much. And so now my top and my bottom are taped and prepped. Fold that down in there. And I'm ready to go with my green. Now I did seal this with the Rust-Oleum that I showed you guys, and I sealed my red. That way my green won't travel, and that's also so that any of the green that might get into the red, I'm going to be able to just wipe that off. Now I'm going to mix a little fresh epoxy, and I'm literally going to try and get the smallest amount that I can, 2.5 of each, 2.5 mLs. And I can't do that on camera, I'm sorry, because I have to hold it up to my light to see my little lines. And so I apologize for that. So I ended up with 5 mLs total, which is going to be way too much. But that's all right. You can use the extras to pour into a mold. You can test your glitter. You could do your glitter sample books with this little bit that's left over. Whatever you want. I don't know if you noticed, I'm not caring about bubbles or anything because this is my adhesive layer. Just make sure you scrape the sides, scrape the bottom, you get all of your epoxy mixed up. Now, one thing that I wish I had sent in this month's box that I did not are paintbrushes. I will make sure to put extras in next month's box so that you guys have them, because I like to paint epoxy on sometimes, and these are cheap enough that you can do it and you know, toss it when you're done. If you don't want to toss it, then by all means you can wash it immediately with soap and water, and then take a little bit of what's it called, your baby wipes, and wipe it really well. But I found that even with that, you'll get some of these bristles that still stick together, and so I prefer to use a new one every time. Being that I didn't send these, I'm going to show you how to do it with what I did send, but I will put an extra paintbrush in next month's box for you guys, craft box, just so that everyone has one and you can see how to use it. As I do like that better for detail work. This is a little big. You can also get these smaller if you like, but basically all I'm going to do with this is I'm literally just dipping the very, very tip of my silicone brush into the epoxy, and I'm going to use this to apply my epoxy and almost paint it on. And you want to go all the way up to the edge of your red. And if you do it both ways, I know my arm is probably blocking your view right now, but you'll get pretty good coverage. I'm going to switch to the paintbrush because I just feel like it'll go a little faster for tutorial reasons. But by all means, you can use your silicone brush I sent, and I will make sure to send a paintbrush, an extra paintbrush, with next month's craft box. You just get all the way up to your corners. And you're good. And I'll move on to the next one. You see, this is, to me anyway, it's a little bit more accurate. Because it's such a small-ended brush, you're able to get up in these cracks just a little bit better than with that silicone brush. So again, I apologize for not sending a paintbrush this time. And I actually thought about it because of the acrylic paint for the pineapple cup, but I wanted you guys to see how inexpensively you can apply acrylic paint, and those little sponges are great for that. Now I'm on to the third one. So if you want to run to Walmart or Target, Michael's, wherever your craft section is, and just grab a couple brushes, it'll save you some time. I'm trying to use this silicone one. And you can get crafting paintbrushes really cheap. Again, make sure you get all the way down into that corner of your triangle. Otherwise you'll have that little blank spot there. And then I'm using the paintbrush to wipe off my excess. Also make sure you're getting right here on top of your thing that connects those two triangles. And you've got about, I want to say most epoxy, you've got about a 45-minute work time. So don't feel like you have to completely rush when doing this, but you do need to move fairly quickly Just make sure you get around the cup in 45 minutes. That way you can go back and you can apply your green. And you'll see a little bit of my red loosened, and it shouldn't have because I sealed it. But if that happens, don't worry because you're going to put the green on over it. You don't want the green to loosen into your red though. Hopefully that won't happen. Just seal before you do your flood coat. I would seal this probably a good 3 times, letting it dry in between coats. And that way you don't have to worry too much about your glitters creeping into the other color. Just make sure you get a really good seal on it. You can also seal by epoxying, but I just think that's a waste. I'd rather spray seal. Now we're almost all the way around the cup. I think I have 3 more to do. And then I'll come back and make sure that it's not pooling anywhere, that it's actually, you know, a very, very small amount, because again, you will be able to see lines under your glitter, just like with Mod Podge or any of the other adhesives. If you see paint lines, you're gonna see them on top of your glitter. So we'll go back and make sure that it's all smooth. And also if there's too much, it will run, and you don't want to have to turn this cup. Not yet. And so you want to make sure that you have all the excess off, which honestly is not hard. Just must be detail oriented, that's all. Now while I'm doing this, I've only got 1 more, but I'm going to explain the pineapple cup. It's going to be done the same exact way. Actually, there's a few ways to accomplish the pineapple, but for the most part, it's done the same exact way for one of the options. You would stencil your leaves, tape your top and bottom if that's what you choose to do, stencil your leaves. Then you would use your yellow acrylic paint on the bottom and glitter over the yellow acrylic. Then you're going to seal that, pull your stencil, and do the same thing to get your green leaves. Do the same type of thing as well for most of your fruit cups. And that was kind of the theme for this month, is Feelin Fruity, and learning how to epoxy method with stencils. So I've got all of them with my epoxy on them, and as you could see, it took very little of my epoxy. I still have my whole cup over here. So you could pour that in a mold or whatever. And I'm just going, looking at it, making sure that I haven't pooled epoxy anywhere. And if you see I accidentally spilled a little right there, I'm not even worried about it. I didn't know that even happened. But that'll cure, and it won't be a big deal. You won't see that once we flood coat. I will always point out my mistakes to you so that we can all learn from them. I'm not going to hide them. But I'm not worried about that little spot. Even if it didn't come off, you could absolutely put one of these right over it when we're ready for those. So that's that. We've got our epoxy applied. And now we are going to glitter with our Maleficent. Oh my gosh, did I just say that right on the first go? Woot. Again, this is an opaque glitter, so you don't have to use a similar base coat, but you always can. It will always give you better coverage if you do base coat with a similar color. For this one, I'm going to hold it this way, even though I like my hand in there, just so I can get the glitter to go the way I want it. Don't worry too much about what's going to get on the red, because you sealed it, and so that should come right off. Just don't get it on that little wet epoxy or it'll stick there. Gotta be careful. Now I'm going to let this cure just like I did the bottom part. So a good 5 hours, depending on the type of epoxy that you use. I use art resin from Backfist, and I do let it cure fairly well before I move on. I do know there are some people who have had luck epoxying about an hour after doing this. I don't. The one time I did it, because I was all excited about, it was a Northern Lights tumbler, and I was so excited about seeing it finished that I epoxied it right away, and oh, I was so angry with myself. Okay, 1 second, I'm going to pour this back and then I'll show you this tumbler. Now you're probably going to use about that same amount with your pineapple cup, but look how much you have left. So this is definitely way more than enough for this 1 month's craft box. Way more than enough. Both of these are still almost completely full, and our project is glittered. So again, I'm going to seal this probably a good 3 times or so. I'm not going to seal it yet. What I'm going to do is I'm going to let it completely cure, and then I'm going to come back and dry brush it and clean it, because if you look very closely, you can see that it goes over just a little. But my red is already cured, so I don't have to worry, it will brush right off. So once my green cures, then I'll come back with the dry paintbrush and just clean up those edges, and I'm going to seal it a few times, and then we're going to come back and flood coat. But that's where we're at right now, so I will see you guys in a little bit. Just let it cure, and we'll meet back here. Hey guys, welcome back. We're at our final stages of our strawberry cup. All I've done at this point from the last time you saw me was I removed my top tape so that I can tape it just a little higher up this time. Again, so that my epoxy actually adheres to the cup itself and makes that bond. I'm going to mix up a little bit of epoxy, actually quite a bit. This is going to be a flood coat, so I'm probably going to do about 20 mLs of each. Of course, it's going to be too much. A lot of it will run off, but to me, that's better than having to do 2 coats. So I'm going to do 20 mLs of each, part A, part B. I'm also going to come back after I mix this, and I'm going to retape my top. I'm actually going to do that while it's on the turner. I might regret that, but because this particular turner turns really fast. Now I don't know if you guys will notice, but towards the bottom, very, very bottom of the cup, you'll see a bright spot. I think there might be one in the middle as well, right here. All that is I went back and touched up those 2 areas. and all I did was I sprinkled a little bit of glitter on my spray sealer. So when I sealed this, I went back and sprinkled a little bit of glitter on the sealer. I'm not too worried about it shifting all the way to the green, so that's why I'm not sealing on top of that, but I just wanted you to know what that was there from. And after this, I'm gonna go ahead and post this video just so you guys can all get started on making your fruit cups. The only thing I'm gonna do after I flood coat is once it cures, I will add all of my little strawberry seed decals, and I will obviously post a picture of the finished product, but I want you guys to be able to start creating. So I'm gonna go ahead and post as soon as I finish this step. Because you really don't need to see me apply vinyl. Just gonna do them randomly, just seeds randomly all over the cup. You can also go into Design Space and make them smaller if you'd like. There's also a strawberry template SVG that came with your SVG packets this month. You are welcome to use that rather than this method. Like I said, there's always more than one way to do this, and so never feel like you have to do it a particular way. If you think of a better way or something that may be easier for you, by all means, do it. Yeah, I don't think I'm going to use that. I'm not going to do that with it on. I'm smarter than that. I'll be cussing at it. Wait, I'm not ready. Again, if you don't tape the tops and the bottoms, then you just saved yourself a step. So just skip right to the epoxy. You don't have to retape. I always fold my tape under. I don't know if you guys realize that, but it leaves me a little lip. I'll turn it back on and let's start epoxying. And again, this is a flood coat, so you're going to have quite a bit run off. That's okay. Again, to me, this is better than having having to come back and do a second coat. Usually when you flood coat over glitter, you're going to get a smooth surface after the first coat. That's the goal anyway. Now when I flood coat, I literally just let my finger move the epoxy, or let the turner move the epoxy, but use your finger kind of as like a little dam. And so you're pushing it, but not quite pushing it, if that makes sense. You don't want to feel the glitter under your hand, under your finger. You're pushing too hard, and you will wipe your glitter. So you don't want to do that. You just kind of use your finger to block the epoxy from going too far in a puddle. I also try not to mix my colors, so like when I'm doing green, I stick with green. When I'm doing red, I stick with red. Obviously, you're gonna have to go into the other colors sometimes, but just try. You see I'm just drizzling right on that edges so that I know those get covered. My tape line. That's where your epoxy is going to seal to your cup, so you want to make sure that has epoxy on it. Again, you'll see how much is dripping off on the bottom. It's totally fine. Again, I would much rather waste a little epoxy on the bottom that drips off than to have to come back and do a whole nother coat. I think we've got pretty good coverage. I'm also going to take a torch to this right now, and then I'm also going to come back and I'm going to take, when I take my tape off, and I will torch it again. You just want to make sure that all of your edges have epoxy. I think it looks pretty damn good. Okay, let me grab my torch. The torch, you want to be very careful. I have the art resin torch from Backfist. You guys probably aren't going to see much of what I actually do because I have to hold the torch so far away. But I torch now about 1 or 2 rotations, and then I will come back when I take my tape off, and I will do the same thing again for another 1 or 2 rotations, and you shouldn't have any problems with bubbles. It will look like glass. I understand that when you do this, your epoxy is going to move around a little bit. It's okay. If you've sealed your glitters, you're good. Don't torch your epoxy, meaning don't get it too hot. But it getting thinner and moving around is not going to hurt anything, because you're popping all of the bubbles. However, epoxy does continue to form bubbles as it cures, so that's why I come back in about 45 minutes and do it again. But y'all, it's that simple. Basically 3 steps, and you've got a strawberry cup. Now again, just to clarify, I will come back in about 45 minutes, and I will take my tape off of my top and my bottom. First, I'll torch it. I torch it first just to get the epoxy nice and loose. So I'll torch it, and then I'll come back and take the tape off. I will let it cure for the full 8 hours or so, and then I will add my strawberry seeds. But that's pretty much it. So I hope this strawberry tutorial has got you feeling fruity. I would love for you guys to share your works of art once you do it. And again, your pineapple cup's going to be pretty much the same type of thing. Instead of strawberry seeds, you'd go back and add little I think Nicole and I started calling them doodads, but just little brown doodads on it, and I will do a tutorial for that as well. But for now, hopefully this gets you guys started, and if you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out to me. And like I said, I hope this has you feeling fruity, and I can't wait for the next tutorial. See you guys again really soon.